I stood at the head of that long glass boardroom table, watching Ryan spin in his leather chair like this was all one big joke. He still had no idea the ground was about to drop out from under him. The room smelled like expensive coffee and fear, mostly his. He smirked at me the way he always did, like he was humoring a child. "Emily," he said, dragging out my name. "Why are you here? You can't run a business. Remember? You're barely smart enough to run a gift shop." The board members shifted awkwardly. They remembered that meeting. They remembered the way he humiliated me. I didn't flinch. Instead, I pushed the thick envelope toward him. "Go on. Open it." He laughed again, nervous this time. When he pulled out the documents, his hand shook just a little. Inside were the silent acquisitions, the buyout confirmations, all the filings I'd gathered for the last 18 months. All stamped. All legal. He blinked. No, Emily. You didn't." "Oh, I did." I crossed my arms. "You stole my $12 million stake. So I bought yours." The boardroom went dead quiet. Security, already briefed, stepped closer. Ryan tried to stand, then sat again like his knees didn't work. He stared at the papers like they might rewrite themselves if he blinked hard enough. This is impossible." "It's done," I said. "And you're done." And as he choked on the reality, I felt something I never felt around my brother. Power. But if you really want to understand how we reached this moment, we have to rewind, way back, to where the betrayal started. Growing up in Miami, everyone assumed Ryan and I were close. We were the resort kids. Our parents built the waterfront property from the ground up, and the community loved the story. Hardworking couple, 2 kids, a legacy to pass down. But inside our home, Ryan was the golden child, the future CEO, the kid who couldn't do anything wrong even when he did everything wrong. And me? I was the quiet one. The helper. The girl who filled in spreadsheets at age 12 because Emily is so organized. The girl who actually cared about the staff, the bookings, the finances, while Ryan charmed his way through every mistake. Whenever I tried to offer ideas, my parents would smile politely and say, "That's nice, honey," then turn to Ryan as if he was the only one with a brain. By the time I finished college, they had already started grooming him to take over the resort. I wasn't even asked what I wanted. I was simply given a desk tucked in a corner and told to support operations. Still, I tried. I worked late nights, learned the business from the inside, and slowly built real relationships with the employees. A few of them even joked that I should be the one running things. But favoritism is a powerful fog. My parents couldn't see anything through it. Then they passed away, suddenly, in a tragic boating accident, and the whole world shifted. The resort was left to both of us equally, or so I thought. That's when Ryan showed me who he really was. 2 weeks after the funeral, Ryan called a sibling meeting. He showed up in a tailored suit like it was a red carpet event, while I was still grieving in an oversized hoodie. He handed me a stack of papers clipped together. "It's just some routine updates for the resort," he said casually. "Legal stuff. Needs both signatures." I trusted him. He was my brother. I didn't read every line. I skimmed, saw familiar wording, and signed. I didn't know I'd just handed him my 55% ownership. He didn't even wait a full day to celebrate. The next morning, he held a board meeting without me and introduced himself as the sole majority owner. When I confronted him, he grinned like he'd won a prize. "Come on, Emily," he said. "You're emotional. You don't care about business the way I do." I told him I wanted the papers reviewed. He laughed. And then he delivered the insult that burned itself into my memory forever. "Emily, you're barely smart enough to run a gift shop. Leave the real work to people who matter." He said it in front of the full board. Everyone stared at me, not with pity, but with the kind of silence that says, "Yeah, he's right." I walked out without a word. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my car keys. For a month, I cried more than I've ever cried in my life. I felt stupid, betrayed, erased. But then something inside me hardened. If he could play dirty, so could I. Only I was going to do it better. After the betrayal, Ryan pushed me out of every decision. He reassigned me to a meaningless guest relations role, basically smiling for pictures and handing out brochures like a mascot. When I refused, he revoked my access to the resort systems entirely. I packed a suitcase, rented a tiny apartment in Little Havana, and disappeared from his world without explanation. Everyone assumed I was broken. Truth? I was rebuilding. I got a job with a real estate investment group in downtown Miami, entry level at first. But while Ryan thought I was licking my wounds, I was learning everything: financing structures, ownership laws, silent partnerships, loopholes, and most importantly, how to buy someone out without ever stepping into their office. My coworkers joked that I had fire in my veins. They didn't know the half of it. Every night I studied. Every morning I worked like I had something to prove. And within a year, doors started opening. Investors began trusting me. Clients recommended me. A mentor, someone who'd watched my brother's shady behavior from afar, asked me a simple question. What if we help you take back what's yours? My heart raced. Legally? Completely legally. That mentor connected me with people who knew people, silent partners, private investors, former board members who didn't like Ryan's arrogance. Piece by piece, I started building something huge. Something my brother would never see coming. And then one night, I received an email that made my breath catch. It said, "Emily, the first acquisition is approved." That was the moment everything started to shift. The real takedown had officially begun. After that first acquisition email, everything in my life changed. I felt awake for the first time in months. The plan wasn't just revenge, it was justice. And I knew Ryan would never willingly give up control. So I had to build a path around him. I started with the resort's smaller vendors and silent shareholders, the people Ryan always ignored. Turns out, when someone treats you badly, you don't forget it. Almost everyone I contacted was more than willing to listen. Some even said, "If this helps get Ryan out, I'm in." I collected documents. I traced transactions. And with every file I opened, I found more proof of Ryan's shady behavior. Double billing, misreported expenses, and a whole list of financial inconsistencies. Nothing criminal yet, but enough to rattle the board if placed under the right spotlight. My mentor guided me through structuring a silent acquisition plan. I would start by buying small shares, tiny percentages from people who wanted out, then build partnerships, then increase my influence. The entire strategy depended on secrecy. If Ryan caught even a whisper of what I was doing, the whole thing would collapse. For months, I lived a double life. By day, a quiet employee learning the ropes. By night, a woman with a mission, gathering signatures, negotiating equity agreements, putting together the puzzle pieces of a takeover. And honestly, part of me still doubted I could pull it off. But one afternoon, I received a text from my mentor that made my heart stop. "You just crossed 30% ownership. Keep going." For the first time, I could see the finish line. But the next part, that was the dangerous part. At 30% ownership, I wasn't just a quiet threat. I was a storm forming on the horizon. The kind Ryan never bothered to watch for. My mentor warned me, when you hit 40%, you'll need allies on the board. People with real voting power. So I reached out. One by one, I met with former board members, retired managers, even my parents' old attorney. They all had stories about Ryan dismissing them, ignoring advice, or using intimidation to get his way. Almost every meeting ended the same way. "We always knew you were the one with substance. Tell us how to help." Their support became the backbone of my plan. Then came the biggest opportunity yet. A longtime investor, someone my parents trusted, decided to retire. He offered me his full 12% stake, privately. If I got it, I'd surpass 50%. But there was one catch. I had to prove I had the financial stability and leadership to handle it. So, I did the scariest thing I'd ever done. I pitched myself. I told him everything about Ryan's betrayal, about my work, about the silent acquisitions, about the legal path forward. My voice shook, but I didn't stop. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "Your brother plays at leadership. You are a leader." He signed the paperwork. 2 days later, I opened my email and saw the line I dreamed of. Ownership updated. Emily Carter, 55% majority investor. I sat there staring at the screen, shaking. I had done it. But now, I had to reveal it. And the boardroom showdown was going to be more explosive than anything that came before. The morning of the meeting, I woke up before the sun. Miami was quiet, almost peaceful, as I got dressed in the navy blue suit I'd bought specifically for this day. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She wasn't the girl Ryan mocked. She wasn't the sister who cried in her car. She wasn't the employee hiding in a corner office. She was someone reborn. Walking into the resort felt surreal. Staff members looked surprised to see me. Some even smiled knowingly, like they sensed something big was coming. The boardroom was full when I entered. Ryan was already at the head of the table, legs crossed, talking loudly about expansion plans he clearly hadn't thought through. He paused when he saw me. "Emily, you're early?" "No," I said, taking the seat directly across from him. "I'm right on time." He laughed under his breath, like I was a joke interrupting his meeting. "What? You want your old guest relations job back? I'm sure we can find you something simple to do." The board members looked uncomfortable. I placed my folder on the table and said, "Actually, I'm here to discuss ownership." Ryan leaned back, amused. "Oh, planning to buy a souvenir from the gift shop." For a moment, my heart ached, not from the insult, but from remembering how small he once made me feel. But not today. Today, I was the storm. And when I opened the folder, the entire boardroom went silent. I slid the documents across the table. "These are the updated ownership records filed with the state." Ryan opened the folder lazily, then froze. He flipped through the pages faster, his eyes widening with each line. The board leaned in. He whispered, No, this isn't right. You can't have 55%. That's impossible." "It's legal," I said calmly. "Every acquisition, every partnership, every signature is real. You tricked me into signing away my 55% stake. So I spent a year and a half buying out yours." His voice cracked. "Emily, we're family." I held his gaze. "You should have remembered that before you stole from me." The board members murmured, some nodding, some looking stunned. One leaned toward Ryan and said, "She's the majority owner. She has full authority." Ryan slammed his hand on the table. "This is a coup."
No, irregular.
"This is accountability." I raised my hand slightly, and two security guards stepped forward. "Ryan Carter," I said, my voice steady and strong. "Effective immediately, you are removed from all managerial and operational duties. Your access is revoked. And you are no longer welcome on this property unless I approve it." His face went red. "You can't fire me." I stood up. "I just did." Security gently took his arm. He tried to pull away, but the fight had drained out of him. As they escorted him out, he looked at me like he no longer recognized who I was. Maybe he didn't, because at that moment, I finally became who I was meant to be. After Ryan was escorted out, the boardroom stayed completely silent. Then, slowly, people began to clap. Not loud applause, just a quiet, respectful acknowledgement that the right thing had finally happened. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt the leadership team. I rehired people Ryan had pushed out. I met with every department, listened to concerns, and restored the values my parents built the resort on: honesty, hospitality, community. Word spread fast in Miami. Some people said, "Emily took down her brother." But the truth? I didn't take him down. He took himself down the moment he underestimated me. One evening, I stood on the balcony overlooking the water, the same view my parents loved, and I finally felt peace. Not because I won, but because I reclaimed what should have never been stolen. I learned something powerful. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one building the loudest comeback. And if you're listening to this, wondering if you're capable of doing something big after being betrayed, believe me, you are. If I can rise, so can you.
Call to action.
If you believe betrayal deserves justice, if you love stories where the underdog takes back everything, if you think silent strength is the most powerful strength, Hit that subscribe button and stay for the next story. You belong here.